Hi everyone! Today I want to dig into the nuances of bullying and harassment, particularly as it occurs online. This topic has been on my mind since I released my response to Yoga Girl, who claimed to be bullied by another yoga influencer who made a parody video of her announcing she was no longer vegan. And recently, one of my favorite YouTubers, Kristen Leo, put out a video titled "Mean Girls Are Taking Over the Internet," where she brought up the topic of bullying. She had a pretty spicy take that many people in the comment section did not agree with. For context, she's talking about Blaire White and how she doesn't agree with her politically, but finds her entertaining to watch.
And this is the point where a lot of people would bring the counter argument and say that, Kristen, she's, being mean to people. She's being a bully. And, it kind of annoys me when adults use the term bullying to describe, mean behavior from one adult to another. Bullying is when mostly a child is being subjected to very uneven power dynamics and does not have the ability to avoid that environment that they are subjected to. If you are posting something online, you should be prepared to deal with the consequences of that, the reactions of other people. And if you do not know that the internet is a negative and hostile place, what rock have you been living under? But also if you do not want to receive negativity and hostility for your opinions or your appearance or whatever, then you can simply refrain from sharing that online. That doesn't mean that I condone people being mean to others online, but at the same time, people are not gonna stop being judgmental just because you have feelings. I'm sorry for being so straightforward about this, but we are all adults, and if you're not an adult, then you should not be posting on the internet in the first place. That's my opinion.
I understand where she's coming from, but after reading through a lot of the comments, I think some of the pushback she received is valid. Let's start by looking at the definition of bullying from a few different sources so we can get a consensus on what this word actually means. According to stopbullying.gov, bullying is unwanted, aggressive behavior among school-aged children. In order to be considered bullying, the behavior must include an imbalance of power. Kids who bully use their power, such as physical strength, access to embarrassing information, or popularity, to control or harm others. Power imbalances can change over time and in different situations, even if they involve the same people. Repetition. Bullying behaviors happen more than once, or have the potential to happen more than once. Bullying includes actions such as making threats, spreading rumors, attacking someone physically or verbally, and excluding someone from a group on purpose. Cyberbullying is pretty self-explanatory. It's just bullying that takes place in cyberspace. According to the American Psychological Association, bullying is a form of aggressive behavior in which someone intentionally and repeatedly causes another person injury or discomfort. Bullying can take the form of physical contact, words, or more subtle actions. The bullied individual typically has trouble defending him or herself and does nothing to cause the bullying. And according to Wikipedia, bullying is the use of force, coercion, hurtful teasing, or threat to abuse, aggressively dominate, or intimidate. The behavior is often repeated and habitual. One essential prerequisite is the perception, by the bully or by others, of an imbalance of physical or social power. This imbalance distinguishes bullying from conflict. Bullying is a subcategory of aggressive behavior characterized by hostile intent, imbalance of power, and repetition over a period of time. Bullying is the activity of repeated aggressive behavior intended to hurt another individual, physically, mentally, or emotionally. The simple definition from Google is seeking to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone perceived as vulnerable. As you can see, there is a degree of subjectivity in what we consider bullying, but there seems to be a consensus that bullying involves a power imbalance, malicious intent, and repetition. The language around repetition varied slightly. The first definition said bullying behaviors happen more than once or have the potential to happen more than once. The second definition described behavior in which someone repeatedly causes harm to another person. And the third definition said the behavior is often repeated or habitual. How I interpreted this is that a bully doesn't necessarily have to repeatedly target the same individual to be considered a repeat offender. If they move from victim to victim, that sounds like repetition to me. If they instigate others to target an individual, that also counts as repetition. Kristen defined bullying in a similar way to stopbullying.gov, which states that bullying occurs among school-aged children. Many commenters disputed this, arguing that bullying can certainly happen between adults, as uneven power dynamics exist in the adult world. Personally, I think this is a fair point. Like, I don't see why it has to be exclusive to children. But what is considered a power imbalance? Let's look at some examples. First, there's the one I mentioned at the beginning, a clear example of what bullying is not. You can watch my video about spiritual anti-veganism for more context, but in short, a popular white female yoga influencer named Rachel, aka Yoga Girl, released a podcast explaining why she was no longer vegan. It was a heaping pile of bullshit. A less popular white female yoga influencer named Michelle, aka Banana Blondie, posted a parody video tagging Rachel. A bunch of Rachel's fans, and Rachel herself, accused Michelle of being a bully. Here's Michelle's response.
Yoga Girl, Rachel, reposted my parody in her stories and said that I was bullying her with the intention of sending people over to my page to tell me what a big bully I am. And I would just like to say that what I did in that parody is not bullying. If you think it is, I think you might need to look up the definition of what bullying is. Bullying is when you seek to harm, intimidate, or coerce someone that is seen as more vulnerable than you. We are not 7 years old, and this is not the playground. Rachel is a grown woman who has made a conscious choice to return to eating and killing animals. She made some wildly inaccurate statements about veganism as a whole, such as veganism is not good for the environment, veganism is not sustainable, and a vegan diet is not healthy. It's deficient. So she had no evidence for any of this, and so I chose to make light of the situation and make a parody. Now, the things that I said in the parody video were things that actually came out of Rachel's mouth. Okay, I will give the part that I said about the 4 major food groups being Doritos, vegan ice cream, vegan cheese, and wine. She didn't say that. I embellished a little bit. But other than that, everything I said were things that she herself said. So if she does not like what I said in the parody video, then she ought to go back and re-examine what she said in her podcast. So Rachel, being called out on your bullshit is not the same as being bullied. Please stop with this ridiculous word bullying. You are not a victim. The animals that you've decided to eat are the victims. And please stop calling anyone and everyone that says anything but glowing reviews about you haters. They're not haters. They're filled with love and compassion for the animals, and they thought you were too.
Michelle does not have power over Rachel. She's clearly punching up. Rachel is the one abusing power. Consuming animal products involves exploiting individuals in a position of extreme vulnerability. Another example that comes to mind is Cody Ko's reaction to Claire Michelle's video titled You. In summary, Cody Ko has a series called That's Cringe, where he reacts to random cringy content. Claire is a new age spiritual influencer who made a video with her boyfriend about how they met at Whole Foods and then 2 weeks later they're living together and they're gonna change the world with their love. Cody and his friend are 2 adult men with a huge platform, making fun of an adult woman with a smaller but still decent-sized platform. Was Cody being nice in his video? Not exactly. But was he being a bully? I don't think so. I recognize that it's kind of a gray area though. You could argue that there was a power imbalance because of the platform size discrepancy. Cody had millions of subs, whereas Claire had around 200,000. But over 100,000 subs is a pretty sizable platform. What exactly counts as a power imbalance regarding platform size? There isn't a clear answer. Cody may have been punching down a bit, but he explicitly told his viewers to not go and leave mean comments on her video. If you have a large enough platform though, you can say this all you want, but there's still gonna be hordes of people who ignore you and do it anyway. So while Cody himself did not repeatedly target Claire, she is likely still receiving mean comments to this day because of his video. You could also point out that Cody's a man and Claire's a woman, but these identity categories are only relevant if his criticism was misogynistic. As clarified in the definition from stopbullying.gov, power imbalances can change over time and in different situations, even if they involve the same people. Going back to the previous example, Banana Blondie and Yoga Girl are both white, but if Yoga Girl happened to be brown, it wouldn't change the power dynamic between them, unless Michelle was being racist in her parody video. The substance of Cody's criticism was poking fun at Claire's hyper-privileged lifestyle and delusions of grandeur. He wasn't being misogynistic. He was punching up, down, and sideways. Personally, I thought his video was funny, and I don't really view stuff like this as bullying. But at the same time, I do kind of feel bad for Claire for the amount of negative attention she received. Considering her behavior wasn't really harmful, it was just cringy. Like, she seems like a kind and caring person. She's just very out of touch. Now let's talk about Blaire White. Kristen said she loves how brazen Blaire is, despite disagreeing with her on many things. How I interpreted this is that she loves how little Blaire cares about offending people, and how freely she speaks her mind, which I totally get. Being nice all the time gets kind of exhausting. Sometimes I just want to be a bitch. Like, who doesn't fantasize about saying, "Fuck you, you dumb fucking bitch"? I think we should resist these impulses, of course, but I'm not gonna pretend like I don't have them. But while I may fantasize about being mean, I don't fantasize about being a bully. There's a difference between being Janice Ian, a mean girl, and Regina George, a bully. Kristen implies that there's no power imbalance between Blaire, an adult trans content creator, and other adult trans content creators. However, as people pointed out in the comments, Blaire often targets people with autism, people who don't conform to the gender binary, and people with very small platforms compared to her own. She's also notorious for making mean comments about other people's appearance. This raises the question, is pretty privilege a thing? Does making fun of someone's appearance as someone who is more conventionally attractive constitute a power imbalance? I think it does. Even without an imbalance of pretty power, I think it's generally pretty fucking low to comment on someone's appearance. I wouldn't make a blanket statement that it's never okay to make fun of someone's appearance, especially when it comes to fashion choices. I think it's acceptable to make fun of myself for butchering my eyebrows as a teenager, and my husband for not knowing how to style his hair back in the day, and my sister for having possibly the most iconic glow-up of all time. Obviously, it depends on the context, but Blaire is clearly punching down.
Zim's name is Alok Vanman. I'm butchering the name. It is what it is. This person claims to be trans, so keep that in mind. Okay. This is someone who is not trans. This is someone who's claiming to be trans by what? Putting on lipstick and then going in the media talking about trans issues as if they know. This is why people don't take trans people seriously. People like this. I feel like this kind of person is just giving like people who don't like trans people ammunition to not like them, because this makes me not like trans people. If this is what trans is, I'm like, oh, I don't like trans people, girl. But I came across this Instagram, this girl who considers herself autism gender. And I'm gonna just put some pictures up. So let's just read her bio. They, them, disabled, queerdo. Like, what is queerdo? Like, queered and weirdo? Queerdo? It's kind of cute, actually. Neurodivergent artist, borderline, disassociative, CFS, me, I don't know what that means. What is that? Fibromyalgia? So the worst part about it is obviously this person claiming to be trans when it's just some girl with way too much time on her hands or too much free time at the mental ward. This person is sitting in a wheelchair and claims to be disabled, but then there's also times where you can catch her standing and walking. So it's like just some crazy shit going on. And then this one. Okay, this might blow your mind, Xenia, but people who are transphobic do not subscribe to trans people on YouTube. Similarly, people who are snaggletooth phobic don't subscribe to you. But I'm really not making fun of her appearance. I mean, I think that obviously her appearance is outlandish, and I think that even she would admit that, because how could she not?
You know what outlandish means? It literally means bizarre or unfamiliar. And you specifically just said you were not going to go after her appearance. Then you called her outlandish.
But I'm really not making fun of her appearance. I mean, I think that obviously her appearance is outlandish, and I think that even she would admit that, because how could she not?
I've met a surprising number of people who...
And hold on a second. You know, I'm down to respond to this video, but I have to do something really quick just to make it a little bit easier for myself. It's much better.
I've met a surprising number of people.
You'd be fine, Riley. I mean, all you really have to do is, you know, wipe off your eyeliner and you blend right in, since that's all you've done in your transition.
Blaire has social power over these people because she conforms to beauty standards and the gender binary, while they do not. It's true that trans people who decide to undergo medical transition have to deal with more physical hardship, but socially they're more accepted than people who don't conform or pass. A lot of Blaire's bullying centers around calling people trans trenders. They're not really trans, they're just trying to get attention. This accusation is so childish. It reminds me of myself as a literal child. When I was in 2nd grade, I remember spreading a rumor that this poor girl who had slammed her finger in a car door was faking it for attention, and it was just blue nail polish. Fortunately, I grew out of this behavior. Although I disagree with Kristen's example, I would consider Blaire a bully. I do agree with her general point, which is that bullying is more than just being mean. An example that comes to mind is artists and musicians who claim that they're being bullied by people who have openly criticized their work. It's perfectly fine to dislike art and critique it on a public platform. A substantive critique video is different than telling someone directly how much you hate their work. Leaving a harsh comment on an artist's promotional Instagram post is just rude. One of my favorite musicians once called someone on Instagram a bully for saying that they hated her new stuff and missed the old her. I strongly disagreed with their take, and I think comments like that are mean, but I wouldn't call it bullying. There's no power imbalance, it's just some random person on the internet being an asshole. If you're an artist, you have to accept that not everyone is going to like your stuff. The terms bullying and harassment have been bastardized to mean criticizing or pestering someone. This allows victimizers to craft a narrative of victimhood. But before I elaborate, let's establish what distinguishes bullying from harassment. According to the APA, harassment, unlike bullying, does not have to include intent by the perpetrator to harm, be directed at a specific person, or involve repeated incidents. Harassment is defined as threatening, harmful, or humiliating conduct based on race, color, national origin, sex, or disability. Harassment may result in a hostile environment that interferes or limits a student's ability to participate in or benefit from the services, activities, or opportunities offered by a school. Legally speaking, harassment involves the target belonging to a protected class, but colloquially it's defined as aggressive pressure or intimidation. Oftentimes, people use the word harass in place of bother or pester. I work in sales, which means I have to approach strangers while they're shopping in a hardware store. I start out with, "Hey, how's it going?" and then ask if they're a homeowner. And while 90% of people are unbothered, some people are extremely bothered. This one lady snapped at me like, "Do they just let you walk around their store and harass their customers?" Yes, Karen, I'm allowed to be here. I'm just doing my job. I used to canvas, and I'd hear stuff like this all the time. I was once standing on a public street corner asking people if they wanted to help fight plastic pollution. And this extremely bothered store manager came outside and started yelling at me, threatening to call the cops for harassing his customers. Like, okay, sir, go right ahead. I'm well within my rights to be canvassing on a public sidewalk. I totally get that some people don't like being approached or flagged down by salespeople or canvassers. But to call it harassment is just inaccurate. Harassment is serious. Being bothered is not. Harassment implies the harasser is at fault. They're doing something wrong. Bothering someone does not imply wrongdoing. People on the anti-woke side of the spectrum often claim that they're being bullied and harassed by the woke mob. Sometimes I find myself on the anti-woke side, where I feel that the offense in question is not actually an offense. And while I usually fall on the woke side of things, I recognize that sometimes the response can be disproportionate to the offense. In these cases, I can sympathize with the person receiving backlash. But I can't sympathize with public figures who say or do something oppressive double down, and then label proportionate criticism as bullying and harassment. If you have a large enough platform, you're bound to receive some amount of harassment. Doxing or leaving aggressively hostile or threatening messages is not behavior I condone, by the way. I don't care how much you think it's deserved. It's not constructive. But to act as if you're being harassed by an angry mob when the majority of criticism is fair is playing the victim. A person who engages in intimidation, harassment, or other abusive behavior while claiming to be a victim is called a crybully. JK Rowling and ex-vegans like Yoga Girl and Elise Parker come to mind. To review, bullying involves a power imbalance, malicious intent, and repetition. JK Rowling is a bully as, 1, there's a demonstrable power imbalance. She's an incredibly famous cis woman who targets trans people, an oppressed minority, with much smaller platforms. 2, there's repetition. She is constantly targeting trans people on Twitter, resulting in her followers targeting these individuals as well. And 3, there's malicious intent. You could argue that she doesn't have malicious intent because she believes that what she's doing is righteous. However, by this logic, you'd have to say that groups like ISIS and the CIA don't have malicious intent, because they also believe that what they're doing is righteous. Malicious intent refers to the intent, without just cause or reason, to commit a wrongful act that will result in harm to another. JK Rowling fully intends to strip rights away from trans women with her advocacy. She may believe she has just cause or reason, but since she can't actually justify her behavior with sound reasoning, she doesn't have just cause. Ex-vegans are also bullies, as 1, there's a clear power imbalance. Non-human animals are subjugated by humans. 2, there's repetition. Animals are bred into existence and exploited for routine consumption. And 3, there's malicious intent. Like JK Rowling, ex-vegans may believe they have just cause for their behavior, but they can't actually provide valid justification. To be fair, I wouldn't classify all non-vegans as bullies. I don't think the genuinely ignorant have malicious intent. However, people who willingly choose to purchase these products, knowing the harm they cause, have malintent. A lot of people took issue with Kristen saying, "You shouldn't be on the internet if you can't handle mean comments." I both agree and disagree. Generally speaking, I agree with the sentiment that if you can't take the heat, get out of the kitchen. If you're an adult and you choose to step onto a platform and share your opinions, you should be prepared for criticism, especially if you do a 180 on the stance you built your platform on. If someone makes fun of you, that's not necessarily bullying. If someone else with a platform vocalizes their disagreement with you, and as a result you get a slew of critical comments, this isn't necessarily harassment. When it comes to crybullying, the backlash they receive is deserved. Again, aside from the aggressively hostile and threatening messages. But when it comes to people who are legitimately being bullied and harassed online by people like Blaire White, Kristen's statement does kind of sound like victim blaming. Like, you chose to be on the internet, you asked for it. Referring back to the definition of bullying from the APA, the bullied individual typically has trouble defending him or herself and does nothing to cause the bullying. The people who Blaire called ugly did absolutely nothing to warrant this. The APA also states that harassment may result in a hostile environment that interferes or limits a student's ability to participate in or benefit from the services, activities, or opportunities offered by a school. This is applicable to online spaces as well. If JK Rowling's transphobic tweets make Twitter a more hostile environment for trans people, she's essentially pushing them out of that space, and therefore limiting their ability to benefit from the services, activities, or opportunities offered by Twitter. They say that social media is the new town square, and not feeling welcome in the town square is kind of the hallmark of discrimination. Personally, I think everyone would be better off quitting social media, but that's a topic for another video. Lastly, I want to briefly touch on my own behavior on this platform, and see if the occasional accusations of bullying and harassment hold up. Yes, I often post targeted response videos. Some people would consider the mere targeting of an individual to be akin to harassment. Yet they're not consistent with this standard because it seems to only apply to criticism directed at people they like. They don't seem to mind the targeting of individuals they don't like. I made a video a while back titled "Stop Conflating Criticism with Hate," where I talk about the difference between expressing disagreement and being mean. Oftentimes, people wrongly perceive the former as the latter, but obviously you can do both at the same time. I generally try to be nice in my response videos, but there have been times when I've been not so nice. While I do regret being a little too aggro at times, I don't think I was ever being a bully. I think my criticism was fair and substantive, and these were channels much larger than my own. There is something to be said about being too repetitive though, and I reached a point where I thought, okay, that's enough videos about this particular person. Well, that's all I have to say about that, so thank you so much for watching. Please give this video a thumbs up and comment down below. Alright, peace out.
Yo, how when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me tell them say me no eat no fish, no meat now. How when me eat them, I wonder when me yam. When me tell them say that I'm a vegan man. How when me eat them, I wonder when me eat. When me